This is DevOps in Agile Way podcast.
Hello! Next week, next letter. This time we will talk about A, automation, so the second pillar of Colm's. Last week we discussed culture. This time we go to automation. Now, before I go into more details about this automation, I want to bring your attention to something what I believe is very important and what we may not seen in bigger picture. Very often, when we deal with DevOps, we think about it through automation only. And this is something very bad. I mentioned a couple of episodes ago about those roadmaps, DevOps burgers, etc., etc., etc. Let me just open this for myself, okay? I just go to my browser and type DevOps roadmap. And what we see there? So there is a web page, roadmap.sh. To be clear, on the beginning, I see the value in it because this thing is showing some generalization. This thing is showing us the possible road which we should take in order to learn elements of DevOps world. But what I do not like about this, let me be equally honest here. I really don't like this approach because it is very biased. It is very opinionated. This is something what is very personal. As a first step in this roadmap is learn a programming language. I mean, seriously? Then operating systems, learn to live in terminal, then version control system, VCS hosting, and so on and so on and so on. Containers, cloud providers, serverless, CI/CD, secret managers, etc., etc. And we have some tools or approaches we should learn. For example, for operating system, we have Ubuntu, Red Hat, FreeBSD, Windows, etc. Some of them are set as personal recommendation, and this is somehow changed for this roadmap. I didn't check this roadmap for a long time. And we have personal recommendation and opinion, right? And this is the blue checkmark, and the green checkmark is alternative option right now. But anyway, let me give you an example. If your work is dedicated to serverless only, operating system is not necessarily the most important or the even important element of it, okay? You can live without it. I know a lot of DevOps engineers. Well, I hate saying DevOps engineer but this is what we have as a position. All right, I will tell it differently. I know a lot of people in DevOps world who are not very good in operating systems. They know basics at all, and they are successful as DevOps people. I know a lot of people who doesn't have knowledge about programming languages, about networking. By the way, there is nothing about networking in this roadmap right now. In DevOps Burger there is. This means that our knowledge is a subject of very specific case. If you work in DevOps position for one company for many years, and this is, for example, the startup, probably you will end with couple of technologies only and with some subset of these technologies really. If you work, for example, with AWS, and EC2 instances and auto-scaling, this is the thing which you will work all the time. You will be probably the master of it. And why I connected this roadmaps with automation, with letter A from Colm's? Because we have here, there is networking and security protocols in the roadmap as well. I'm sorry. Yes, it is there. So let me come back. Why I connected those two things? Because we have a couple of elements here which are part of our understanding what automation is. We have version control system, we have cloud providers, we have infrastructure provisioning, we have configuration management, CI/CD tools, etc., etc. This is part of the automation. But the problem with the automation, as we understand this automation, is very simple, really. Because I believe many of you, and if there is anyone who didn't heard this in the past, please let me know in the comments. So all of us heard the sentence automate everything. The automation, the DevOps, is about automating everything. What is not necessarily the truth. So I'm looking on the definitions of columns and letter A on different web pages, and for example, I see something like that. In DevOps, we automate every possible element of the SDLC and on every phase of its life. Well, I will come back to this later. In another page, we have information that, and this is very, very nice one. It is from DevOps.com, that they said something like that. This is the quote from Mr. Mueller. The risk is always deploying too fast and you end up with deploying bad code. And of course, this is the case as well. Automation is not only about making the delivery faster. Automation here is also about making delivery safer. Okay? Why? Because we can put a lot of tools, a lot of efforts, a lot of instruments into this automation, into automated pipelines, into automated value stream to ensure the quality of delivered artifacts and on the end in the platform. Why this might be also important, and I believe not many of you thought about this. Let me give you this insight from my own interpretation. The problem with human factor is that we have the tendency to, let me be polite, to bend facts for our advance. Okay? And very often we try to describe the picture better than it really is. Automation, in this case, is very strict. There is 0 or there is 1. There is success or failure. Automation will not say, there is, okay, we deploy this, but there is a small problem, but it's not important at all, right? There is a success or fail, period. Your infrastructure will be provisioned or not. Your application, your containers, etc., will be deployed with CI/CD or not. Simple like that. The point of automation is in big picture, because we need to look on this automation also through the big picture, okay? If you are the engineer who is sitting with the keyboard, of course, you have the tendency to write more and more of automation, etc. But the problem is that we need to look on this, on our whole SDLC, on our whole process, from the perspective where we can see pros and cons. Because the truth is that not everything is reasonable to automate. Okay? There are elements which can be automated very quickly in very simple way and give us a lot of advantages. But also there are elements which are not really needed to be automated. Example, I saw once really amazing approach to do some infrastructural work. But I mean it, really amazing. It took couple of months to create this process, this automation. And honestly speaking, it was run only once. So now, if we do this process, this whole work manually using ClickOps, right? Going to the console and click everything, we will do it much, much faster than with these tools. This whole approach, which, as I said, was amazing from the perspective how it was constructed, how it was parameterized, etc., etc., etc. And now there is something also in between, right? We have this amazing, fantastic tool, automate everything. We have a manual steps. We have a lot of things in between, because those stuff is not black and white. There is a lot of shades of gray inside. So we can automate partially. We can automate only some elements. We can create very simplistic automation. It doesn't need to be always idiot-proof. I'm sorry, but this is the truth, and that's it. We need to do the initial work before we start automating processes. Is this worth it or not? What we can automate? So this is another aspect of this automation, right? So we can automate a lot of things, from the First idea we have in mind, we can automate infrastructure using infrastructure as code. We can automate delivery using CI/CD pipelines. We can automate security using security tools in pipelines. We can automate testing using also testing inside the CI/CD pipelines, and a lot of things like that. But also we can automate processes. And now I know this is something maybe for bigger companies, not necessarily for startups, but imagine the situation when you have multiple teams, multiple projects. You have some process management system, like for example Jira. You have your VCS, version control system, like for example GitHub. You have your CI/CD. You have your infrastructure as code, etc., 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 etc. Now the point is, and one more important element to make this picture even worse. You work in highly regulated environment where you need to be compliant with many regulations. Your stuff need to be auditable, etc., etc., etc. So having proper connectivities, having proper connections, having properly automated process from task in Jira to deployed artifact in the end environment is critical. And this is also part of our automation. Okay? In the previous episode, I gave you some ideas of how to measure culture, and I will do the same for automation. However, the one element which I want to mention, and I use this in the skill book I mentioned last time, is how we create KPIs for automation. And I know, KPIs. Yes, we love that, right? But the quote from my work there is like, automation in DevOps should really be classified more like strategic automation. So this is exactly what I said. It's not like a just simple thing like, let's automate something we do. Because this is not relevant only for DevOps. We automated things even before anyone thought about DevOps, about Agile. Okay? We used Bash scripting. We used many, many other things in order to have repeatable and, let's say, error-free approach to things. And this quote I mentioned is from victorops.com and the article called Top Metrics for Measuring DevOps Delivery Value. I splitted automation into 5 categories for measurement: automation efficiency, automation utilization, software quality, system application health, and the last one, incident and resolution times. We need to put all those 5 elements in order to properly understand our automation process, how good it is, how much work we still have to do. What we can measure? For example, we can measure platform health, so availability, response times, etc., etc. And please see that we do not talk here about delivery process itself. This is more like maintenance at this point. But it is also relevant for the platform or tools used for delivery. For example, for our CI/CD platform. Incident and resolution times. An incident number, right? So how many incidents we have, how much time we need to fix them, etc., etc. Cycle time, deployment frequency, deployment time, automation utilization, tools utilization, resource utilization. These are very important elements. Why, for example, automation utilization is important? Because we will never have 100% of automation. Tool utilization. How many tools we use in our process? If we have 5 projects, 10 people, and we use 20 tools, that probably something is wrong. So those metrics were, again, related to the team, more to the team than individuals. But what we can, let's say, attach to individuals, for example, the learning curve, the improvement in use of the tools, the code quality. Something what I hate and we never should do is number of commits. Why I mention this? Because this is the easiest possible metric for management to capture. And this is the most wrong one. Because believe me, I can have 1,000 commits per hour. But what I will deliver is rubbish. Okay? So never ever count number of commits. Because this is useless. automation rate, qualifications, rejected pull requests. This may be very interesting measurement because this also shows the dynamic and the cooperation inside the team, additionally to the quality of the code created, the quality of the everything what is behind this, the learning curve I mentioned on the beginning. That's enough for today. We discuss automation probably in the way that not many of you expected, but that's fine. I hope you find something for yourself here. And that's it for today. Next time we will talk about Lean. See you next week.
Thank you for listening to this episode of DevOps in Agile Way podcast with your host, Pavel Pivosh. Subscribe, comment, and do not forget to check our next episodes. Stay tuned. Stay safe. Stay curious.